Welcome to this edition of You Can Get There From Here. I'm Dr. Joe Moore, Chair of the Department of Communication and Digital Media Production at the University of Central Missouri, and it is my pleasure to bring you this show each week where I get to sit down with some of our alumni. I get to talk to them about what they're doing these days and how the university helped them get where they are. This week, I get to talk with Gaby Miciano. Gaby earned her degree in Communication Studies, and now she is a Director of Selection for Northwestern Mutual Financial Services in Kansas City. I had Gaby one of her first classes in Intro to Communication, and since then I've watched her go on to do some great things. Gaby, great to have you with us. When we get done today, I'm going to want some stock tips.
Okay. I'll give you my best.
How have you been? What are you up to these days?
I am just working here in the Kansas City area. I actually live downtown, so just being around the area, working for the past couple of years, getting out of UCM. I was just telling you, I miss campus so much, but it's great to be on here today, and thanks for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you with us. So tell me, you're the Director of Selection. What does a Director of Selection for a financial firm do?
Yeah, so my primary job it entails a lot of things. I wear many hats, but for the majority, I actually spend most of college campus season, so spring and the fall semester. I spend a lot of my time on campus, honestly, just being a resource to students. We collaborate with career services, the success centers. We do a ton of work in the classroom, so clubs, classes, organizations. We spend a lot of time doing professional development that could really range from professional development presentations such as like Finance 101, networking, building your brand in all of those different groups, and really just, again, being a resource to students, helping them with resumes and helping them kind of develop as young professionals. And then from there, like on the back end, I spend a lot of my time doing primarily most of our recruiting for our internship opportunities. I focus mainly in the campus sector, but we do have quite a few full-time opportunities as well as what we call conversion recruiting. So people who are about to graduate, just graduated, or are basically converting from an internship to a full-time career. So I spend a lot of my time doing recruiting in that space as well. So again, I wear so many hats, but then I also help out with the development of all of our interns and our full-time advisors as well.
Well, and you're probably ideally suited for that because you just graduated in May 2022, so
Yeah.
you're pretty fresh out of college.
Yeah.
You could probably relate really well with those young people coming up trying to start their careers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The first like year or so out of college was so interesting because I was so close to so many of these people that I was hiring, and so they were like, how did you get here? What landed you this job? What do you love about it? And so it was really easy for me to like head back to college campuses and be so relatable to, hey, I was just in your shoes a year ago. And it was really great to be able to relate to students on that level, but then also help them professionally to say, hey, here's what we're looking for from a recruiting stance, and here's the things that we look for in, a really sharp candidate, and help them be able to understand how to interview and how to build their resume and how to fill out different applications. So yeah.
So do you focus right here in Missouri? Are you regional, or do you go nationwide looking at recruiting?
So Northwestern Mutual is a nationwide company. We have offices in most major cities across the US, but I territory basically the Kansas City metro area, but we do have schools as far as K-State. So we territory really K-State, KU, Washburn, Emporia, some of the smaller Christian colleges and D2 schools. And then we have UCM in our territory as well as Mizzou, and then a couple schools a little bit further out to like most states. So I would say within 3 hours of Kansas City is our territory, but we also have some Southwest offices as well.
Okay. Well, how did you get into that? Was finance something you've always been interested in, or were you a communication professional and this was a position that was really appealing to you?
Yeah, so I had never thought about finance, honestly, even like HR. Nowadays, recruiting really falls into HR. I had never thought about it, looked into it, but I happened to be in college during COVID and I had had an internship lined up for, I think it was my junior year, after junior year summer. And it ended up falling through because of COVID. I was kind of in like a gray area where there were not a lot of opportunities. Internships were getting canceled. My internship was more of an events internship I had secured, and it fell through. They canceled it, being the industry that it was. And I actually had a mutual friend who is really good friends with my mom. Her daughter and my sister were in Girl Scouts together, and she had just basically reached out to my mom and was like, "Hey, I know your daughter is like a rising junior senior at UCM, and that's actually within our territory. We have some opportunities that we are currently hiring for, still through COVID." Funny thing is, Northwestern Mutual being the industry we were in some of our best years during COVID. So they were still running a lot of programs remotely. Of course, everyone was kind of coming off being at home, and we were just getting out of quarantine. So I interviewed with a couple people here. I told my parents, I was like, I do not want to go into finance. It's not something that I'm passionate about. Like, I don't know the first thing about it. And it was kind of an aha moment of, I just really have to throw myself into something to see if I like it, if I'm going to thrive in it, and if I like want to do it. So I started an internship, honestly, just on a pretty basic recruiting level. I did a little bit of a campus connection stuff and campus outreach, and um, I kind of progressed into taking on a lot of different roles as an intern. So I actually interned with the company for 2 years before I
Oh,
graduated.
wow.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
was with them through a lot of different periods of time. I did a couple of different roles. I did a little bit of public relations, a little bit of recruiting. I worked a little bit on the client side for my now managing director, and I did some client success work and client outreach for his practice, and a little bit of the management side as well.
So we talk a lot in communication that really you can do anything with a communication degree.
Yeah.
You need to be able to talk to people, you need to be able to work in groups, you need that sort of thing. How has your communication degree, because you said you have no background in finance,
Yeah.
how has your background or how's your communication degree helped you in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I think through the communication department and through the degree, you have such like a vast opportunity to take so many different classes in so many different areas. And I think the great thing is the communication department really helped me to learn things that you don't learn maybe in other areas or other degrees that are simple, but you can use across any sort of industry. A lot of these skills I would say, like just even knowing how to talk to people, how to really network, how to use my interpersonal skills to build really strong and lasting relationships. But then also when it comes to the job market, how do you negotiate? How do you talk about salary? What are you doing today that helps you articulate thoughts really well in my career is something that was a huge takeaway that I really like understood how to get people and how people work, which I think is super key in any job role. A lot of these skills you can apply in every industry because if you think about it, comms flows to so many different areas, so many different jobs, marketing, sales, customer service, HR, PR, writing, advertising, media, customer relations, and like broadcasting. So there are so many things that you just don't learn or others maybe don't teach. How do you create a sentence? How do you help others critically think and coach them? And then public speaking, I think, was a really big one that made like an impact in my career today that I learned through the department a lot. We did, of course, a ton of writing, a ton of public speaking, but also learning how to be comfortable in that setting was a big thing as well. And I think it made me really like an asset in a lot of the roles that I've been in. And my impact was like so much more tangible, taking away those types of things that I learned through the communication department.
And you talked about you do a lot of public speaking in your classes, you do a lot of writing in your classes, a lot of group work, but it's still in a classroom setting. You have to go out, and we really stress that you have to get involved outside of the classroom to put what we're learning in the classroom into practice. What sorts
Yeah.
of things did you get involved in when you were in school? You talked about doing the internship for 2 years. What other things were you involved in that really helps you put those communication skills into
Yeah.
practice in a practical sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming into UCM, I was actually undecided when I first started as a freshman, and I didn't throw myself into like any sort of clubs and organizations that I really should have at the time to get myself out there, meet different people, learn about different organizations. And frankly, all the way up until I got my internship, I wasn't involved in many organizations and clubs. I think it was more of the people I surrounded myself with. I actually lived with athletes my entire college career. So I was around all of every single sports team. I was around so many people that were really involved in, Christian athletes. They were really involved in business clubs, marketing clubs. And so what I did was utilize my relationships on campus to network through those organizations. So in my internship, actually ended up in going to speak to a lot of those clubs, organizations, classes, groups on campus that were maybe untraditional or unconventional clubs that a lot of people didn't know about. So I got involved through my networking skills and in my internship. And I think my biggest thing that I did on campus was get an internship that allowed me to do a lot of campus work. So my internship was primarily focused, my job was to be on campus. It was to be a representative, it was to be a campus ambassador for Northwestern Mutual because my recruiter and my team at the time, as much as they would have loved to be on campus every day, they weren't able to. So I think I utilized a lot of my internship being a key player in getting myself involved on campus and using those skills that I learned to really network out from there. And I think that really helped me in my career today to learn how to do those things so early on campus to be so good at what I do today as well.
You've talked a lot about, you've said that buzzword we say all the time, that network, network,
Yeah,
network, the whole idea of it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, you need to know stuff. You need to have
yeah,
some
no,
knowledge,
absolutely.
but getting to know people
Yeah.
and making those connections really sounds like it's paid off for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I still have actually some really close connections on campus that I sometimes I'll come back and do panels or sometimes I'll come do LinkedIn workshops for them. And so they're people that I honestly like built really strong connections with faculty while I was there and while I was through my internship that today I still definitely am going back to, but then also I want to come and be a resource for them on campus as well. And that's like 70-80% of my job still today. So,
Well, Gabby, you've done some great things. Really proud of you. I have two questions, and I always end each of the podcasts with these two because I
yeah.
want to hear from our alumni who are out there speaking to our students and our potential students. First question is, what advice would you give to a current UCM student studying communication? And the second question is to that student who's thinking about coming to UCM to study communication, what would you tell them?
Yeah. I would say my top tips for a current communications major, I would say one, find like your niche. Find what you really like to do, what you like to learn about, what you're really passionate about. And that doesn't have to be, oh, I'm really passionate about just advertising. It could be, hey, you know what? I'm really passionate about helping people, working with people and doing XYZ and figure out to do your research. How can you maybe in an unconventional way do that in a career that you've never thought about, an industry that you've never thought about? So do your research, find your niche, and then the other thing is utilize the resources that the school provides you. A lot of the job boards, a lot of the opportunities that teachers give in the classroom when it comes to maybe even like social media platforms, LinkedIn, Handshake, Indeed, all those job posting platforms, I would say are there as a resource for you, and your teachers are more than happy to connect you even with personal connections that they have if you just tell them what it is that you really like to do. I would say those are my like three biggest tips. And then my biggest tip, I think, for someone coming maybe into UCM wanting to study communications is communications degree is really the new business degree. And it is so versatile in anything that you think you might not like, anything you think you might want to do, you can do with a communications degree. It's all about how you frame it. It's all about how you work and you network and you communicate with your fellow students and fellow faculty and staff about the type of opportunities that you can get with a communications degree is so vast and so broad. So that would be like my biggest tip is utilizing a lot of those resources on campus as well.
Well, friends, that's been Gaby Miciano. Gaby, thank you so much for being here with us today. You're doing some great stuff. Next time you're on campus, you better pop by Martin 136 and come see me.
I definitely will. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
And thanks all of you for tuning in to this episode of You Can Get There From Here. Remember, you can catch it every episode on our YouTube channel for UCM Media Network. That's youtube.com/UCMMN. You can also listen to the podcast on Spotify. Again, this is Dr. Joe Moore reminding you, you can get there from here. Have a great day.